Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today I will be showing you how to crochet a pop-up flower coaster that's perfect for beginner crocheters. You can use this as a coaster or as a little trinket tray. You can make it for yourself, or I think they make really cute gifts. So whatever you want, but with that said, let's jump right in. For this project, we are going to use the following materials. Yarn, I am using 100% cotton yarn. I also have selected 2 different colors. And for this project, I would recommend you using cotton just because it is better at absorbing water and it is also more heat resistant. A crochet hook, I am using a 4mm crochet hook, yarn needle, a pair of scissors, and also a stitch marker. And if you don't have a stitch marker, you can use a bobby pin or a paper clip. Before we get started, I would like to point out that you can absolutely make this project out of 100% acrylic yarn if you wanted to. So this little tray right here is actually made out of acrylic yarn. And I really like the look of this. Actually, I like it more than the cotton yarn look, to be honest. But I just would not recommend this as a coaster. But I think it's still really cute as a little trinket tray, which is what I use it for. First, we'll start with the magic ring. Hold the tail end of the yarn with your 2 fingers like this, and take the working end of the yarn and wrap it around your index and middle fingers like so. And as you're wrapping the yarn around your fingers, flip your hand over and crisscross the yarn on top like this. You can use your pinky to grab a hold of your yarn. Now take your hook and insert it under the strand on the right and above the strand on the left. Use your hook to grab a hold of the yarn on the left and pull it under the yarn on the right, slowly. Now twist your hook so it's facing up and pull your hook up slightly. At this point, you already have made your magic ring, but I also like to chain 1 right after so I can secure the magic ring. And to do that, take your hook and place it under the yarn that you're holding with your pinky, grab a hold of that yarn, and pull it through the loop on your hook. And you've just made a chain 1 on top of your magic ring. Next, we are going to make another chain, and to make a chain, yarn over and pull that yarn through the loop on your hook. Now you have 2 chains. These 2 chains do not count as a stitch, but it's just there to help us reach the height to start this round. For this first round, we are going to make 12 double crochets into this magic ring. And to double crochet, yarn over, insert your hook into the ring, and yarn over, and pull that yarn through the magic ring. You'll have 3 loops on your hook. Now yarn over and pull through the first 2 loops. Yarn over again and pull through the next 2 loops. And you've just made a double crochet. At this point, if you're a beginner, take your stitch marker and put it under this first double crochet stitch. If you flip your work to the side, you can see this little V shape here, and that's a stitch. We want to make sure we insert our stitch marker under this entire V, like this. And we're using a stitch marker to mark this double crochet so it's easier to spot later on. Let's practice making another double crochet together. So yarn over and insert your hook into the magic ring. Yarn over and pull up a loop. Now you have 3 loops on your hook. Yarn over and pull your hook through the first 2 loops. Yarn over again and pull your hook through the last 2 loops. And we've just made another double crochet. Since we've already made 2 double crochets together, please make 10 more double crochets on your own. You can pause the video here and come back when you're done. Okay, welcome back. Let's flip our work to the side and count our stitches together to make sure we're not missing any stitches. All of these V shapes here are a stitch, and that's what we want to count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. You can see the stitch marker under this stitch, and that's what we marked at the beginning. Now that we've made sure we have 12 double crochets, we can close the loop by pulling on the tail end here. And then to close this round, we want to slip stitch back into this first double crochet, which we have marked with our stitch marker. So let's remove this stitch marker. And to slip stitch, you take your hook and insert it under this stitch. Yarn over and grab that yarn to pull up a loop. Now pull that yarn through the loop on your hook as well. And you want to tighten this up a little bit so there's no gap. And here you're done with round 1. To start off round 2, you will need to start with a chain 2. Now for this round, we are going to be working 2 double crochets in each stitch. When you place 2 double crochets in one stitch, that's called a double crochet increase. So while we ended with 12 stitches in round 1, for round 2 we will have 24 stitches because we are making 2 double crochets into each stitch from round 1. It's important to know that the first stitch that we want to work into is that same stitch that you slip stitched into, so that's the stitch right here. With that said, let's get started. We are going to start off by making 2 double crochets in the first stitch. So let's loop the yarn around our hook once and insert our hook into that stitch. Now yarn over and pull up a loop. Yarn over again and pull through the first 2 loops. And finally, yarn over and pull through the next 2 loops. And that's 1 double crochet in this stitch. The next thing we need to do is make another double crochet in this stitch. But before we do that, make sure you use a stitch marker to mark this first double crochet stitch here. Okay, now that's done, let's make another double crochet into the same exact stitch. Yarn over, insert your hook into that stitch, and pull up a loop. Now yarn over, pull through the first 2 loops, yarn over, and pull through the final 2 loops. And you've just made another double crochet stitch here. And so because you made 2 double crochet stitches in that one single stitch, you've just made a double crochet increase. Okay, we finished our first double crochet increase. Let's do another one together as an example. So we are going to make 2 double crochets into this next stitch here. So you yarn over and insert your hook into that stitch. Yarn over and pull up a loop. Yarn over and pull through the first 2 loops. Yarn over and pull through the next 2 loops. And we've made 1 double crochet into that stitch. Now let's make another double crochet into that same stitch. Okay, we have just made 2 double crochets into that one single stitch. So we've made another double crochet increase. Now, if you turn your work to the side right now, you can see that we have 4 stitches. And that's from the 2 double crochet increases we've just made. So for the rest of this round, for round 2, make sure you make 2 double crochets into each stitch. And at the end, you should have a total of 24 stitches. So pause the video right now to do that. And when we come back, we'll count our stitches together to make sure we have the right amount of stitches. Okay, we are at the very end here, but as beginners, we always want to double check our work. So let's count our stitches together. And we start with that first stitch under the stitch marker. If you have less than 24 or more than 24 stitches, go back and make sure you have 2 double crochets into each stitch here, just like that. And to close this round, we are going to slip stitch into that first stitch we have marked with our stitch marker. So let's remove our stitch marker and make a slip stitch into that stitch. If you remember to slip stitch, you want to insert your hook into that stitch. Yarn over and pull up a loop and pull that right through the loop on your hook as well. And you want to tighten a little bit, make sure it's not too loose. And you're done with round 2. So congratulations, you have just made the center of the flower coaster. At this point, you are done with the first color, so pull out your yarn a little bit and cut it off. And then you can also pull that yarn through, and we are done with the first 2 rounds. Now for round 3, we are changing to a new color, and we need to locate that same stitch that we just slip stitched into for the last round. And then you insert your hook into that stitch. Now take your second color and put it around your hook like this. And pull that yarn through that stitch. We are starting with a chain 2 with this new color. And the pattern for this round 3 is 1 double crochet into 1 stitch and 1 double crochet increase into the next stitch. So at the end, we should end up with 36 stitches. Let's take a look at how to make this round. Now in that same stitch where we slip stitched into and where we inserted our hook to change to this new color, we are going to work a double crochet into it. And a little tip here is because I want to sew in less ends at the end, I am going to try to hide my loose ends while I am crocheting. So to do that, you want to pick up the loose ends that you're trying to hide and place them on top of your hook. And you can hold it with your hands like this. And now you just work a normal double crochet. So yarn over and pull up a loop. Now yarn over and pull through the first 2 loops. And yarn over and pull through the final 2 loops on your hook. And you've just made your double crochet for round 3. Remember to use a stitch marker to mark this first stitch. In this next stitch, we are going to work a double crochet increase into it. So yarn over and insert your hook. And again, because we are trying to hide our loose ends, put these 2 loose ends on top of your hook. And now finish your double crochet. Okay, you've just made one double crochet in that stitch, and we have to make another double crochet into that same stitch. And remember, you are trying to hide the loose end, so put those two loose ends on top of your hook as you're making your double crochet. And you have just made your second double crochet into that stitch, so you have just completed your double crochet increase. If you look at the side, we have 3 stitches now because we made one double crochet and one double crochet increase. This is the pattern that you want to make across this whole round. So one double crochet into one stitch and then one double crochet increase into the next one. So let's do another example together. Here in this next stitch, we are going to make a double crochet. And then in this adjacent stitch, we are going to make 2 double crochets into this one stitch. Also, don't forget we are still trying to hide our loose ends, so don't forget to do that. And we have just completed a double crochet increase. So the pattern is one double crochet increase, one double crochet increase. And you just want to repeat this pattern until you finish the very end of this round. And at this point, pause the video so that you can complete the rest of this on your own and come back when you are at the very end. Okay, we are at the end now, but let's count our stitches as always, just to make sure that by the end of round 3, we have 36 stitches before we move on to the next round. Also, I want to point out that if you flip the work to the back, you can see I have already successfully hidden those 2 loose ends. So I no longer have to worry about those 2 loose ends and sewing them in at the end. Now we are going to slip stitch into that first stitch here to finish off this round. And we are done with round 3. Round 4 starts off with the chain 2 as well. So make 2 chains. The pattern for round 4 is 1 double crochet, 1 front post double crochet, and 1 double crochet increase. So let's take a look at how to do that here. And to start off this pattern, in that same stitch that we just slip stitched into, we are going to make a double crochet. As always, take your stitch marker and mark this first stitch here. In this next stitch, we are going to be making something called the front post double crochet. Posts are these vertical parts of the stitch right here, and a front post double crochet is where you make a double crochet around these posts from the front of your work. You do this by starting off as if you're making any regular double crochet, by looping the yarn around your hook once. And now instead of inserting your hook under these V-shaped stitches here, we will be inserting our hook under this post and then bring your hook up again from the other side. Now you want to yarn over and pull up a loop under that post. And when you pull up a loop, you want to pull it up a little bit more so you can work like this. And now yarn over and pull through the first 2 loops. And yarn over again and pull through the remaining 2 loops. And you have just made a front post double crochet. At this point, we have made 2 stitches, and you can see that with these V shapes here. And now in the next stitch, we will make a double crochet increase, which just means again, we are going to be making 2 double crochets into the next stitch. So because we made this front post double crochet and it can possibly block part of the next stitch, a common mistake beginners might make is you might find the wrong stitch as the next stitch. So if you're not sure which one is the next stitch, you want to find the next post, which is easier to find because it's the post that's right next to the one that we worked from. And then the next stitch that corresponds to this post is the stitch that is behind it. So that is this stitch right here. We are going to make 2 double crochets into that one stitch. Okay, we are done with making a double crochet increase into that stitch. And if you flip your work to the side, you can see we have made 4 stitches, 1 from the double crochet, 1 from the front post double crochet, and 2 from the double crochet increase. And that here is 1 set of sequins. And we are going to be repeating that sequence for a total of 12 sets for this round. Let's make another set to review. So remember, the sequence starts off with 1 double crochet in the stitch. And then for the second stitch, we are going to make a front post double crochet. So at this point, it might be difficult for beginners to find the next post. So the best way to do that is locate the next stitch first and find the corresponding post. And in this scenario, it might be easier to find the next stitch because that's the stitch right next to the one that we just made our double crochet into. And then the post in front of it is the corresponding post with that next stitch. And that's the post that we want to work into next. So the next post is this one right here. Insert your hook front to back to front and make a double crochet into that front post there. Also make sure you pull the loop out enough so it kind of lays flat like this. The next stitch in the sequence is a double crochet increase, so let's make 2 double crochets into the next stitch. And we are done with another set of sequins. You want to repeat this sequence around until you reach the very end of this round, which is a total of 12 sets. But remember, because we made 2 sets together already, you really only need to make 10 more sets on your own. At this point, pause the video and come back when you are done making the remaining 10 sets. Welcome back. At this point, you should have made a total of 12 sets. At the end of this round, we should have a total of 48 stitches, so let's count those too. Okay, now that we've double checked our work, made sure that we have a total of 12 sets of the sequins, and we have 48 stitches, let's close this round out by slip stitching into this first stitch. And now we are done with round 4. And we start off round 5 with a chain 2 again. And then the sequence for round 5 is 1 double crochet, 1 front post double crochet, 1 double crochet, and 1 double crochet increase. So let's practice doing 2 sets together. Okay, let's start off by making our double crochet, and it's going to be in that same stitch that we slip stitched into right here. And then of course use a stitch marker to mark that first stitch. Next, we are going to work a front post double crochet in the post of the next stitch. And if everything is right, this front post double crochet should be aligned with the front post double crochet from the last round. And you'll know that because you'll see the bump from the last round. So yarn over and insert your hook under that post, yarn over again, and make a double crochet, yarn over, pull through the first 2 loops, yarn over, and pull through the final 2 loops. Next, we are going to work a double crochet in the next stitch, yarn over, and insert your hook into that next stitch, yarn over, and pull up a loop, yarn over and pull through the first 2 loops, and yarn over and pull through the next 2 loops. We have just made our double crochet. In the next stitch, we are going to make a double crochet increase. So yarn over and start making our first double crochet into that stitch. Now yarn over and make another double crochet into that same stitch. And we are now done with one set of the sequence. If we turn our work on the side, we can see one set will create 5 stitches. Let's do another set together as an example. We start with a normal double crochet in the next stitch. Next, we are going to make a front post double crochet in the front post of this next stitch. And then in this next stitch, we are going to make a double crochet, a normal double crochet. And finally, in this next stitch, which is the 4th stitch of this set, we are going to make a double crochet increase. Here is our first double crochet. And here is our second double crochet into that same stitch. And we are done with the second set. For round 5, you are going to need to make a total of 12 sets of that sequence. And since we've just made 2 together, you can probably pause the video to make the remaining 10 sets on your own. Remember, just to repeat the pattern, for every 4 stitches, you should have 1 double crochet, 1 front post double crochet, 1 double crochet again, and then 1 double crochet increase. And just repeat that pattern across this round. Welcome back. If you are done with this round, you should have made a total of 12 sets, and they should line up with the previous round. And that just means that you should see the front post double crochets basically line up together. At the end of this round, you should have a total of 60 stitches. I highly recommend you counting the stitches if you are not so sure. As usual, let's slip stitch into that first stitch to close this round off. We are finally on our last round, which is round 6, and we start off round 6 with a chain 1. And then make a single crochet into that same stitch that we slip stitched into. And to make a single crochet, just insert your hook into that stitch, yarn over and pull up a loop. Now yarn over and pull through both loops. And use your stitch marker to mark this first stitch. So the sequence for this round is 1 front post single crochet, you chain 1 and you skip a stitch, and you make 2 treble crochet increases, and then chain again and skip a stitch. So let's work 2 sets together to see how this goes. And we are going to start off with the first stitch, which is a front post single crochet in the post of the next stitch. Take your hook and insert it under the post of the next stitch. Yarn over and pull up a loop. And now yarn over and pull through both loops on your hook. And you've just made a front post single crochet. Next, chain 1. And now we are going to skip the next stitch and instead make a treble crochet increase into the one next to that one. Another reminder to make sure that you are looking at the stitches right, because all this work in the front post might block your view of a stitch. Just make sure that you are identifying the right stitch. To make a treble crochet increase, you just want to make 2 treble crochets into that same stitch. And to make a treble crochet, wrap the yarn around your hook twice, and then insert your hook into the stitch. And remember, we're skipping this one, so insert your hook into the one next to that. Now yarn over and pull up a loop. You should have 4 loops on your hook. Yarn over and pull through 2 loops. Yarn over again and pull through 2 more loops. And finally, yarn over again and pull through the final 2 loops. So that's your first treble crochet into that stitch. We need to make another treble crochet into the same stitch. So yarn over twice. Insert your hook into that stitch and yarn over and pull up a loop. Yarn over and pull through the first 2 loops on your hook. Yarn over and pull through the next 2 loops. And finally, yarn over and pull through the final 2 loops. And we've just made a treble crochet increase because we just made 2 treble crochets in the same stitch. And now in the next stitch, we are going to make another treble crochet increase. And remember, that just means that we are going to be making 2 treble crochets into the same stitch here. Now we are done with our second treble crochet increase. We are going to chain 1 and skip the next stitch. And in the stitch next to that one, we are going to make a front loop single crochet. And you will know that you're in the right stitch because this lines up with the front loop stitches we've made in the previous rounds. Now we have just completed the first part of a petal, so let's do another one together. Technically, the start of this next set is a front post single crochet, which we've already made. So let's chain 1. We're going to skip a stitch and then make a treble crochet increase in the stitch next to that one. Remember, make 2 treble crochets into that same stitch, making our first treble crochet into that stitch. And now we're making our second treble crochet into that stitch. And in the next stitch, we are going to make another treble crochet increase by making 2 treble crochets into that same stitch. And now that we're done with the second treble crochet increase, we want to chain 1. And we're done with our second set. But remember, after we chain 1, we're going to skip a stitch and then make a front post single crochet into this post right here. And then you've just made your second petal, and repeat the pattern for this sequence for a total of 12 times to complete the row. And since we've already made 2 petals together, pause the video to make 10 more on your own and then come back when you're done. Welcome back. I hope you are done making your petals. At this point, we are so close to being done. I just made my last petal, so I just made my chain 1. And I need to finish off, so we are going to slip stitch into the stitch of our first post single crochet. At this point, you might have noticed that we used our stitch marker under the single crochet, not the front post single crochet, but it really doesn't matter. You can slip stitch into any one that you like. And finally, we can fasten off and cut off the yarn. And finally, you want to sew in the loose ends and cut off the loose ends, and we're done. I hope you found this tutorial helpful, and if you did, please consider giving this video a like, or you can subscribe to my channel for more beginner friendly crochet tutorials. I'll see you guys next time.